can we make a comparison about or between the animal usage in academia and animal usage, let's say, in the agriculture or meat production industry, or cosmetics even? Yeah.
Yeah, with cosmetics it's simple because that number is 0.
Okay.
So that's also something that's still, very, very broadly thought about, that animals are used in cosmetics testing. And that's simply not the case. I mean, there are certain intricacies on the rules and regulations, but in essence, you can say no cosmetic product is tested on animals anymore. So there's not a rabbit that is has makeup on it and so on. But that's something that people still think is happening, and that's decades ago. This was forbidden in Germany, and it's extended to Europe, and you cannot even import cosmetics that have been tested on animals in other countries. So the governments really tried to make this idea that we do not want animal testing for luxury products, really put that in place. And I think that's really what we have today. But still people think it's it's mainly for cosmetics. So but for the other use scenarios, so we can, just to say a number, in Germany we have about 2.5 to 3 million animals that are being used in science every year. These are the ones that are used either in animal experiments or killed for their organs, to use them in research. And there's another about also around the same number, 3 million animals that are being killed because they cannot be used for animal research. So they're being bred for the research purposes, but because they have sometimes the wrong genetics, are not the correct sex, depending on the experimental needs, different age, maybe something like that. So they cannot be used, but they can also not be, fed and cared for until the end of their natural lifespan. So they're being killed to make room for new animals. And based on that, so we have a total of, let's say, about 6 million animals being used in Germany every year for scientific purposes. So that sounds like a big number, right? 6 million animals. And it's mostly mice and fish and some rats, rabbits, and then all the other animal species like pigs, sheep, but also dogs, monkeys, as we were saying. But these are, to a much, much lesser degree. So 6 million animals, big number. But when you compare that to the animals that are being used in agriculture, completely different scale, completely different order of magnitude. I mean, several orders of magnitude. So we're actually talking about 750 million animals a year that are being slaughtered in Germany alone. Most of them actually chicken, because there are so many chickens being eaten, or their eggs, and then later on the chickens after as well. So these are big numbers. I think we need to be very careful with this perspective. I think it's an important perspective, because usually people get very astonished about these numbers and they had no idea. But of course, the one doesn't justify the other, right? So just because there are so many animals being slaughtered for food production doesn't mean that it's okay to use, as many animals as we want for science, or the other way around. You could say, well, of course I can eat as much chicken as I like, because animals are being used in science. So the one doesn't, correlate with the other. So, but I think it's an important perspective just to see, like, how many animals are we actually talking? Because when people argue, well, it's just too many animals being used, then the question is, of course, what does too many mean? And how much are we actually talking about? Just to have a more global perspective on what humans actually do with animals, and that's a broad range of things that we do to animals, and that's one of them, and it's not the biggest one. clearly.
Yeah. I'm glad that we made this comparison. I was honestly also not aware that cosmetics was not tested on animals anymore. See,
It's not often talked about.
I just didn't. I honestly, I use very few cosmetic products